I want to welcome Ashley Bell. Mr. Ashley Bell is a former banking and corporate partner at the world's largest law firm. He's a former White House policy advisor for entrepreneurship and innovation. He co-founded and served as the general counsel of the National Black Bank Foundation and the Black Bank Fund, which has delivered over $500 million worth of deal flow to Black banks across the country. Welcome. It's so great to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me. And, I can just say that I was so inspired by the last group with Hope that I donated myself. So I hope that others were equally as inspired. You can find the Grow Fund on her social media account, and just happy to be a part of that. Just a phenomenal opportunity. I hope a lot more people take advantage of that.
What a fantastic plug. Thank you so much for that. And so as I was just talking with Hope in this last segment about the ways that race and racism impacts so many of our communities, like we obviously understand that past and current challenges for Black people and financial institutions in America. So I'm wondering what role that inequality, those challenges have played in the founding of the National Black Bank Foundation. And how does the work of your foundation seek to actually end poverty?
We have to look at the root of this. And I think I appreciate Brother Tubbs and Hope for really not being afraid to look at the roots of this stuff. And I think when it comes to banking in particular, it goes back to before slavery. It goes back to promises made, promises not kept. It goes back to 40 acres and a mule that we never saw. And specifically, it goes back to the creation of the very first Black bank, which was the Freedmen's Bureau. The American government understood at the conclusion of slavery that in order to take a people from being capital to capitalist, they had to understand how money works and how money moves in our economy. Going from being on someone's balance sheet to having your own balance sheet took education, and it took a introduction. And this introduction that was the Freedmen's Bureau was one that damaged our people for a very long time. It was the Freedmen's Bureau that was created for banks for freed slaves. What was so iconic about the Freedmen's Bureau, you had over 60% of former slaves putting money in these bureaus. They were everywhere across the South. Pennies were going into these bureaus, people who didn't have much, because they wanted to be a part of this great capitalist experiment that America had been working on, that they knew worked for some people and figured it should work for them now that they're free. Well, the bottom line was that this bank and those pennies from those former slaves was spent on speculation out west. And so to cover it up, they brought in the great abolitionist, Frederick Douglass, who became the very first Black bank president. And when Frederick Douglass became the first Black bank president, he realized when he put 10,000 of his own dollars in, that the Freedmen's Bureau, created by our government to usher us from capital to capitalism, was a fraud. And he went to Congress and said, we have to shut this down. All of the money is being spent on speculation out west. And with the stroke of a pen, Congress ended the Freedmen's Bureau, and not one former slave got a penny back. W.E.B. Du Bois came and said this, and I think it rings true today through decades and decades. W.E.B. Du Bois said, it would have been better off for us to remain slaves for another decade than to have the Freedmen's Bureau closed. Think about that. He said it would have been better off for us to be slaves another 10 years rather than the psychological effect of entering your first part of being an American citizen and have the government take all your money and not give it back to you and expect you to trust financial institutions. And here we are, 2022, we're a little over 1% of the total wealth of this country. The day the Freedmen's Bureau was closed, we were a little under 1% of America's total wealth. All this time, we haven't grown our posture and our position. So when we talk about the rise of Black banks, the night Dr. King was assassinated, we had over 120 Black banks in this country. As I speak to you, we have 18. Why is this important? It's important because economies and jobs are created when you circulate the money, when you can have engines where your dollar can leave one hand and go to your barber and then go to the plumber, and it all stays in one community. It creates jobs for those people. Well, When you don't own your bank or control your bank, that means the moment you get your paycheck, you're outsourcing it to someone else's community to build someone else's dreams and opportunity. So black banks are critical, because if we don't have black banks, then the little wealth we do have is being leveraged by other people to create other opportunities. And I'll say like this: we can kind of frame this. When you look at communities that are deserts, and we talk about them all the time, healthcare deserts, food deserts, banking deserts, all these things you can follow from the way our economy is set up. Credit is like water. Where it flows, things grow. Where it does not flow, things do not grow. So when you deny a community access to credit, you deny its opportunity to grow, to start businesses, to support families, to support home ownership. All these things flow from the river of credit. And when we know that every statistic shows us that African Americans are denied access to this water, to this much needed ability to grow time and time again. When every time we look on the news, there's some big bank with some big story saying how they didn't want that water to flow to people that were black and brown in our country. And I think that is the root of what the National Black Bank Foundation was created to do. This is why we're honored to have Dr. Bernice King as one of our founders. And since that time, we've been trying to lean in to industries that make money off of black bodies and black talent, like sports and entertainment, and tell them, as Dr. King said in his final speech in Memphis, it's time to bring that money home. It's time to create a banking in movement. So you can't just take our money out of our community and build other people's wealth. It's time to bring that money home. And that's what the Black Bank Foundation has been doing. That's what that $500 million that we've been able to bring back home has been about.
No, that's good. That's really powerful. Thank you for all of that. So I'm thinking about a powerful quote from Reverend Dr. King, where he says that as long as there is poverty in the world, I can never be rich, even if I have $1 billion. So I'm wondering if you could kind of speak to this. Like, how does this resonate with you, especially when some of the various wealthiest in the country and world aren't burdened with the same taxes or fees or other things that overwhelm many of the poorest in this country? And how do you see the efforts that you're waging about kind of achieving greater economic justice and economic equity for all?
Right. You know, it's incredibly expensive in America to be poor. Incredibly expensive.
It sure is.
10 million people in our country spend a total of $9 billion just to access their money that they earn. Just think about that. There's 10 million people in this country that a total spend $9 billion just to gain access to paychecks that they earned, whether this is check cashing, high interest rates, just to get access to their money. We have a system that is set up to do exactly what it's doing. Okay. It punishes poverty. It punishes poor people. We have this weird thing called a credit score that puts 3 numbers on everybody. And these 3 numbers that it puts on everybody dictates the access you have even to your own money sometimes. And so if your credit score is low, it costs you more to get access to money. And that, to me, is where we have the biggest divide, where what creates the racial wealth gap in this country. We need to create a system, and this is what we're leaning into with the National Black Bank Foundation. This is what we're leaning into with some very innovative things that are coming very soon. We need a system without credit scores. We need to abolish the entire credit score system. It has given us the racial wealth gap. It has given us a world where only 42% of Black people own a home and 73% of white people own a home. And that has been the case for 60 years. This is what it has given us. We need to create a score that sees people for who they are. We need to create something that sees the whole person and recognizes that sometimes you'll have setbacks. Recognizes that sometimes things in your life will happen. You may go through a divorce. You may have a bad business. You may have a healthcare crisis, but it shouldn't bankrupt you for the rest of your life. And by getting rid of credit scores and creating a new way and a new pathway to get access to that water I was talking about, We can grow new dreams. We can grow new communities. We can blossom all sorts of ideas of innovation, but we have to go to the core of this and understand that the system we have is giving us what we don't deserve.
Mm. So I would love to hear from you about what you think that people that are tuning in, people that you meet, along your life, can do. I mean, to support
Mm-hmm.
uh, the foundation, to get involved in the work of actually economic equity, to take on this racial wealth gap. Will you will you will you tell our viewers, our listeners, how you see being able to
Well,
resolve this?
I'm a country boy. I'm from Gainesville, Georgia, which is a little small town. And I'll say this: there's a lot of wolves in sheep clothing walking around our community right now, and we need to recognize who we are. All right. Every time you turn on the television, you're seeing more and more companies, financial institutions marketing to Black and brown people and poor people. And just because they're marketing to you doesn't mean they're for you. I believe that as much as we focus on policy, we must also focus on products. What's for the people must be for the people, not just marketed to the people. And I give you an example. When you look at fintechs, these companies that are on your television screen with happy Black and brown people dancing and having a good time, saying, "Give us your money, put your money in our bank," and all this stuff, recognize what's behind that marketing. Just because I have a Black or brown face on the front of it and you now start depositing your check on this app that's on your phone, 10 times out of 10, your money is now being sucked out of Atlanta, sucked out of Stockton, sucked out of out of Philadelphia and Chicago, and put in rich, affluent, homogeneous communities that are nowhere near you, building someone else's dreams. This is accelerating the racial wealth gap in our country because we're being marketed to, and the precious resources we have are being taken from us and given to other folks. Now, I know everybody pays everybody with Cash App, but did you ever think when you go through Cash App, where is that bank? Where is this money actually going? To us, I'd send it to you, you send it to me. We just had an easy transaction. But the reality is, in a gig economy, where our brothers and sisters are trying to make money the best they can, they are marketed to by these companies, and these companies hold your money in a far off place, helping far off folks that don't need it. But they're building their dreams off of our economy. So I'm not about just complaining about this. What I'm telling you is there's a revolution coming. There's something coming, and that revolution will be new products and services that are truly be for the people. But it begins with educating the people to look behind the marketing, to see these wolves that are walking through our community and taking our precious water we do have and reverting it to other places that have enough. You can't really fight this issue of poverty unless we understand that every generation has brand new challenges that are entrapping people who are poor. And we're too late to realize what's happening. And then we write books about what happened. We're right in the middle of it. In a post George Floyd world, you see millions of dollars being put out every day saying what people are going to do for us. But now it's accountability season. It's time to ask the question, where's the money going? These products and services that you're marketing to us, are they for us? And if they are, prove it. We have to hold everyone accountable, every policymaker and every product developer.
I appreciate that. It makes me think actually so much of some of the biggest corporations in the world who do market, as you were just saying, to Black and brown communities, who make much of their money off of the buying of Black and brown communities. I'm thinking about some of the lowest paying but largest corporations in the world, McDonald's and some of these others who are taking people's money but still marketing to them, and so I think that one of the things that makes me want uh I want to give you some last words, and I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit too. You talked about both the products and the policies, and so just to say a little more about, again, how we can actually resolve some of these issues, because
Yeah.
I tell that you're a deeply hopeful person, and so what is to be done? What can we do? Where do we go from here?
I think it starts with all of us banking our values. Bank your values. Don't put your money, or don't let your friends put their money anywhere that does not reflect your values. That money is not being used for the benefit of our community, then I guarantee you it's being used against us. And we've seen it time and time again. So it starts with educating yourself. Let's start from there. It starts with, if you're going to use a black dry cleaner, you're going to use a black caterer, you also need to be thinking about the institutions that hold your money. So even if you're not using a black bank, maybe you don't have one near you. Maybe you're watching this right now and you're saying, actually, I just don't have one close by. I understand that. But you also have to voice your values to where you do bank. They have to know what matters to you. And it's more than just marketing. And I think every one of the major corporations in this country in the last 2 years have made some announcement about what they intended to do to benefit the least of these. And I think that right now, in the middle of this accountability season, it takes every one of us to look at the places we lay our head, where we spend our time and our treasure and our talent, and do an accountability check to make sure that we're banking our values, we're living our values, we're spending with our values. If we do that collectively, then we have a moment in the sun right now so we can turn history. We can really divert what's coming. Because what's coming, unfortunately, is a world where marketing and words matter more than substance, where outreach matters more than outcomes, where ideology means more than ideas. And I think we can bring it back to a place where we can say our lives matter, our values matter, and we're going to force companies to reflect those values, or you won't get our business. This is the new sit-in.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. And I want to thank everybody who has tuned in this evening.